How are you? Happy
I'm
New Year.
doing good. I'm happy New Year to you as well. I'm so happy that you said yes to my invitation to do this kind of
Oh, I'm
interview.
very honoured. I'm very blessed and very honoured. I love your work. I watched
Oh,
your
thank
videos
you.
on conversations with God, conversations with Jesus. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And what I found so amazing, I read Conversations with God, book 1, 2, and 3, about 20 years ago. And I loved it. It became my new Bible, and I promoted it through my classes and workshops and said,
Right.
this is the most empowering book you will ever read. Read this. This is my relationship with God as I understand it. And when you were having that conversation with God, source, it was almost word for word what was in the book. And I knew that,
Wow. So let's rephrase. What is the book called? Because I don't know it.
okay, there's a book, it's by Neil Donald Walsh.
Oh, I
And
have heard of it. Yes. And I have
right,
read one. Well, it took me forever. I'm dyslexic, so I really have a hard time reading books. But my
okay.
mom bought it once for me because I was in a stage of severe depression when I was 19 years old. And so it took me, I think, 3 years just to get through the book. But it really, I don't quite remember what was all said in it, but I remember it completely opening up
Yeah.
everything that had been locked up because I had been raped by my grandfather and I had gone through such trauma because of that. Everything just got locked up, and that book did open. But you said there were three parts. There's actually three parts to that book.
Yeah, there's. I mean, I read. He's got loads of books, but I think his first book. I'm not sure, but the first one I found was Conversations with God, and then he came out with Conversations with God, book 2 and book 3, which I
Ah,
also
I have
read, and
not
they were
seen those.
challenging, and they were amazing. And then he wrote some other stuff, and I got the next 2 books, and I didn't resonate with it at all. And I thought, right, I think we're done, for, in terms of what I needed to learn from that or
Hmm.
open up to. Um, yeah, I mean, I've read it at least 5 times. So book 1 is all about how to work your life. It's all personal to you, relationships, your relationship with God, the universe,
Hmm.
people, everything else. And book 2 is bigger. It's more about the wider community and what's going on. And then book 3 is more universal. He talks about Hebs, higher beings of light, highly evolved beings, and other planets,
Right.
other galaxies, other universes. Each book kind of expands on itself. And I just loved it. And I've been watching for the decade before in the 90s 2 channelers
Mhm.
that are not on YouTube. They because every now and again I look, is there any stuff on here? But I used to get sent the videos. And in those days it was VHS videos, and there was a guy that channeled Lazarus, and he's an American guy, and he set up the Lazarus Charitable Foundation, and it's all charitable work, and that was incredible. That was 80s and 90s. And then in the late 90s I found Jamie King, and she's an Australian. I don't even know if she's still with us because this was a long time ago, and she was
I've
quite
never
an
heard of her.
older person then. And Jamie King channels Ptah, and the
Hmm.
teachings of Ptah again really resonate. Very, very high vibrational stuff, and perhaps a little bit too advanced for a lot of people, especially back then.
Hmm.
And our vibration and awareness has risen now, and we're more open to it. I've been teaching for about 10 years, and one of my students came to the class with a book of the teachings of Ptah by Jamie King. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got all those original videos that are like 10, 15 years old. Beautiful, beautiful, very high vibrational stuff. So yeah, when you were channeling all that stuff, I could just feel the energy, and I was in it, and I just sat in bathing in that light. It was just
Right.
beautiful. So thank you for
Oh,
that. Thank you for
no, you're
welcoming me
welcome.
into,
And I'm happy
your
that it
channel.
moved you. I'm happy that it
It did.
moved you and that it resonated with you because I am kind of a person, since I don't read books. I just don't, I went through the one because I was so depressed and I locked myself in my room for like 2 years. But I'm kind of a person who doesn't have much knowledge of other people out there. And so what I found you on YouTube because as a medium, and this might be something that you yourself might experience too, it doesn't matter how good you can channel and it doesn't matter how connected you are. But when it comes to your own personal life, you are dealt with the conflict. Is this what I want to hear? Or is this what's really going to happen? So you kind of have this conflict of interest because you can't really separate yourself from yourself. It's really hard to do that, or even from the people that are very, very close to you. And so as mediums, we also go and look for other people that we really resonate with. And I've been through many videos and I go, nah, nah. You know, I instantly feel, okay, this is the real deal, or this is, no, there's something wrong here, you know. And I came upon your video and you instantly caught my attention. Just the first few seconds you started talking, I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, let's keep watching. And you just kind of swept me away into just the way that you're channeling, and it's like a natural flow, the way that you're doing things, and all of it resonated with me. And I'm like, holy shit, this is good. This is good. Keep it coming. And so eventually I started, watching you on a regular basis. And so I've been watching you for quite some time now. And then I had the privilege of having a personal session with you, and it just kind of blew my mind. And that was a lot of fun as well. And I just felt a connection, and I was like, oh, I gotta share her with the world. I gotta share her with my followers. Whenever I feel somebody is genuine and is absolutely in it for, helping people and really aiding to the collective healing of the world, then, I always feel like I need to share that with the people that are following me, because it's just wonderful to see a fellow, light worker who's there trying her best, getting through this hard thing called human life with all of its struggles. And that's why I invited you today, so we can share you with a little bit more on my end of the world. And the first thing I wanted to ask you, for me, it's always started as a child, and then trauma hit, it was blocked, and then it reopened with new trauma in the future. How did it start for you? How did you know about your connection? How did everything start for you? How did this spiritual journey start for you?
A little bit similar to you. So I was already quite spiritual as a child, and I remember trying to talk to my mum about it, and she shut it down. She shut it down completely. Not just spirituality, but any kind of religion, talk of God, talk of Jesus. It was banned in the house. My mother had a very bad relationship with the divine. She blamed God for everything. She
Right.
just, yeah, and she's wouldn't discuss it. But I can remember from a very young age, and I'm talking 4, 5, 6, I would want to be in the garden as much as possible by the large tree at the bottom of the garden, and I felt there was a fairy glen there, and I'd be down there playing with the fairies and stuff. Now when you're 5 and 6 and you're away with the fairies, it's allowed, it's okay. And then when I was around 7 or 8, I also experienced quite a severe trauma, and that opened me up. So during the trauma, and I've spoken about this on my channel quite openly, sexual trauma in childhood. And I remember during the event, I lifted up out of my body. Now, this is quite normal. It's disassociation. You remove yourself
Yeah,
from
I had the same thing. I wasn't really, my body was present, but I wasn't present while it was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just recall I was sitting, it was in the woods where this event took place, and I was then sitting at the top of the tree above what was going on, and sitting next to me was this very lovely man who had his arm around me saying, look at me, look at the birds, look at the tree, don't look at what's going on down there. And he was keeping me distracted, and he was just being very, very lovely. And every time I kind of went to look down, he was just, no, look at me. And he had the most intense eyes and the most intense energy. And we had this little chat. And then he said, it's time for you to go shortly. But know that I am always with you, and I am your friend for life. And I said, that's lovely. Who are you? What's your name? And he said, my name is Jesus. And he literally put his hand on his heart and said, my name is Jesus, and I'm always here for you. And the next thing I recall is kind of coming back into my body, being in excruciating pain, and going home and hiding in the shed and ripping all my clothes off and, hiding them, and it all being very nasty. Anyway, after that, I decided I'm going to church, and I'd never been to church other than maybe a wedding or something. So I just told my mother I'm going out to play with my friends, and off I went. And went into this church, and it was a Baptist church at the end of my road, and there was a big cross with Jesus on the cross over the altar, and I just sat there having a chat with my mate Jesus, and I carried on going every week. That first time I discovered that I'm supposed to have money to go in the collection, which I didn't have and didn't know about, and I knew that I wouldn't be allowed to go, so I started stealing money out of my mother's purse, like threepence as it was in those days. Maybe I think our money changed around either 69 or 70. So I was around that time. I was going to church, taking money out of my mother's purse. And that went on for quite a long time until she caught me. And then I spoke to my dad. My parents were divorced, and she's like, you wait till I tell your father. And he's on the phone like, why are you stealing from your mother? And I said, because I wanted to go to church, and I go to church and I have to put something in the collection. So he had a word to mother, give her pocket money, let her go to church if she wants to go. So I started going to church, and I was developing this relationship with Jesus and God. And whenever the vicar, the priest, the minister, I can't remember the title, the different titles in different churches, would be saying something that I felt was completely wrong, I would be arguing. And we'd go downstairs to Sunday school, and I would be saying, no, it doesn't work like that. My friend Jesus says, no, that's not right. That's not what he said, and that's not what he meant. And there's me, 8, 9, 10 years old, arguing. Absolutely, and still do, in my truth of that is not my loving God, and that is not the universe's beautiful, benevolent, loving God. And so I then tried various churches over the next 10 years. I went from the Baptist to the Methodist to the High Church. And each of them had their own bits that resonated, but predominantly they didn't, until I found myself at 17 in a spiritualist church. And I thought, this isn't quite right, but it's a lot closer than the others. So they were talking about responsibility and karma and past lives. And I could see all my past lives, and I could see energy. And they're talking about spirit. And I've been seeing spirit since I was about 6. And I thought I belong here, I fit here. So for the next 20 years, if I wanted to go to church, which wasn't every week, but if I wanted to go, I would go to the spiritualist church. And not just for the evidence that they give about, your dead gran is here, or your grandfather wants to tell you this or that, but for the communion, for the singing, for the hymns, for the sermon, and it was generally kind of worked for me until I was about 38. And then I just felt it doesn't fit for me anymore. It's still dogma, it's still rules, there's still expectations, there's still something not quite right. So I pulled away from it. And I was then, and I had been for some years, in a meditation group. I was in a circle, a channeling circle, and I outgrew that after a couple of years. And then what happened was there were several other people in that circle who were also saying, I don't feel I resonate with it anymore. I'm not kind of looking forward to going. I'm missing the odd week because I'm not feeling the connection. And I said, yeah, I think they've taken us as far as we can go. We need to find something more advanced. So this would have been around 2001 or something like that.
Right.
20 years ago.
I can't believe it's already 20 years ago.
I know.
What happened?
Yeah, so
Remember 99, when everybody thought the world was going to come to an end. Oh, Lord.
I built a career, and I wasn't doing readings, but I was doing healing. I've been doing healings, and I've been doing advice and sort of intuitive guidance, but I never used cards or anything. But I've done that all the way through my teens. And I talked about this in another interview I did, that when I was in boarding school around about 13, I discovered that I could heal, to make my headaches go away, make my period pains go away. I could make myself feel better. And then I started doing this with some of the girls in boarding school, put my hands on their head if they had a headache, put my hands on their tummy if they had a tummy ache, and it would go. So I started reading, I was reading books from about 13. So because I could see energy and color and spirit, I started reading a lot of books by mediums at the time, just to understand it. I was reading healing books. And then I moved sort of through that. And a lot of the time I was in fear. So I could see people's energy. So if somebody was very dark, very depressed, very anxious, I didn't want to go near them. I could feel it and I didn't understand it. So I wanted to understand it. I'm a curious person. So I was already strongly in the energy with God and Jesus and the angelic energy. So what about the other side? Everything has polarities. I want to understand the other side. So I started reading horror books. 13 to 16. I know it's mad.
Oh Lord.
I read every horror book known to man, and it was just like allowing all the fear to come up. And then I started reading all these occult books, and we're talking Devil Rides Out and all of those really nasty, The Exorcist, all of this devil stuff. I was reading all of that, frightened me to death. But I started to understand kind of fear and people's fear and all of that. And so it was always part of me, and I dipped in and out the spiritual church for years. And then eventually, like I said, around about 2000, in the 90s, I found all of these teachings that were much more high level. So Ptah with Jamie King, Lazarus with, I can't remember his name, American guy that does Lazarus, but he was amazing. These were very high level channeled stuff that I'd not been exposed to before. And I outgrew the spiritualist church and just became spiritual. And then I started teaching myself. So when we were trying to find a more advanced circle, a more advanced teacher, we couldn't find one. So we agreed that we're just going to get together and try and just with our own guides and our own master's higher self. I was working with White Eagle at the time. And White Eagle is very high vibrational energy, been around for a long time. And so I was the only person with my own home at the time of the group. You know, most people lived with their mum, or they were a lodger in somebody's house, or had a tiny little flat. So I had a reasonable size house that I was renting that was for me and my children. And I said, well, come to mine. I've got a decent sized lounge and we will sit and do a circle. And everybody rocked up and looked at me and said, what are we doing? I'm like, well, I thought I was facilitating it and holding it. I didn't know I was teaching it. So I just tuned in and immediately started channeling all this teaching. And that went on for about the next 12 years. So I did workshops and seminars and talks and all sorts. And I was reading prolifically. So I was reading Diana Cooper was a huge influence on me. She is a angel, unicorn, high vibration teacher, and she had a series of books called Shed a Little Light On. So they were Shed a Little Light on the spiritual laws, angels, all sorts. I read all of those. And then I discovered Conversations with God. That became my new Bible. I was off. This was the I Am Presence. I started then exploring more books on the I Am Presence and Neville Goddard and various, and these are in the 30s and 20s, teachers teaching the I Am Presence, Saint Germain and the I Am Presence, the I Am Discourses. It was all about what Jesus had said, that God is within us, that we are the creators, that we have that divinity within us, and we're co-creating with the universe, but actually the universe is within us. So we're getting into the little bit of the Buddhist type energy here, where everything is within you rather than out there. And I realized that I'd been disempowering myself for a long time by saying, well, my guides will show me what to do, or my angels will show me what to do. And this new level of teaching was actually about everything's within you. The problem we have with that, once we start really working with that, the block is, I don't know enough, I'm not clever enough, I'm not spiritual enough, I'm not powerful enough to be able to master the law of attraction, what I want, my health. I can't do it, but my angels can. So what we do is we kind of delegate our power. And the majority of people still are, it's getting better, but the majority of people will give their power to my guides told me to, or the message I had said to. And that's fine. It's a really good starting place, but understand you have the power and you're delegating it to them. But when you choose to take that power back and realize they work for you, then we're in a different ballgame, you know? So everything's been shifting over that 20 years. And so when I started the tarot, I mean, I've been doing readings professionally for 20 years. So that the cards came in back in 2001, 2, something like that. And I started doing mind, body, spirit fairs and doing public displays and all sorts of things like that. But when they guided me to, like, we want you to share this out more, all right? So I was doing classes and I was doing workshops. So then it was, right, put all your teachings into a book and get your books out there so they can reach the masses. Yes, I'm teaching sort of 10 or 12 people in a group and I'm doing 2 or 3 of them a week, but I'm still reaching less than 50 people. So I put all my knowledge into a trilogy of books, those that are behind me there, the angel books. And I didn't just want to write a non-fiction, this is how you do it, spiritual development book. So I chose instead to wrap the teachings around a story. So it's actually a fiction book, it's a rom-com, it's a love story, but it's all angelic influence all the way through, with a lot of teaching all the way through it. So I did that.
If you think about it, yes, it might be non-fictional, but the essence of it is true. And, that's how information has always been passed on from generation to generation, is really by incorporating truth, universal wisdom into made up stories, so they become more accessible to people, they become more reliable to people, they can connect to it in some way or form. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, what took me to the next level, I mean, from that spiritual awareness that had always been there, the healing and everything else, but what took me to the next level was when I left the rat race and my career, which was 20 years ago. And I retrained as a hypnotherapist. So I did a 2-year course and became properly qualified and advanced qualified and everything else within hypnotherapy. But I found that when I take somebody down into a hypnotic trance, which is a deep meditation, basically, that
it's basically getting you to the subconscious part of the person.
Going into the subconscious, and you're tapping into that universal part of you. And as soon as I was leading somebody down into that subconscious, I could see everything about them, all the issues they had, what had caused them, why they were there, and how to heal them and how to rebalance it. Which was phenomenal, because that isn't standard hypnosis. That's not standard hypnotherapy. But I found that I was coupling all the knowledge I had with the intuition and the insight and the clairvoyance to be able to really identify somebody's issue. So they would come to me with perhaps anxiety. They didn't know why they had anxiety. And I would immediately go and say, tell me what happened when you were 14. And they're like, oh, well, that's when my dad died. And I'm like, okay, that's what the cause was. All right, that has created that abandonment and that fear. And then anxieties come from there. So we need to release the grief and help you come to terms with the loss of your father. Then we settle down all of the emotions and reset the body and the energy, and off you go. So I found that as the years went on, especially over the next 10 or 15 years, I specialized more and more with trauma, depression, anxiety, PTSD. And I was able to fix people that other people couldn't. Most people that came to me had already been to other hypnotherapists, healers, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, counselors, and they'd help them to a certain extent to manage their condition, but not to remove it. And
that's the thing, isn't it? Everything's energetic. And so even our physical illnesses are just, it's a manifestation from an energy that we're holding on to, that we're not processing, or that's really just not feeding us in the right way. And I think it's amazing that, you're really tapping into frequency. That's what you're doing. And you're doing it in many different levels, many different dimensional kind of planes. And when you have somebody with you who's in need of assistance, who really can't find the origin or, why they are hurting exactly. Sometimes we think we do from a human, but there's a whole different ballgame behind the scenes that's playing out. It's amazing that you can actually, use all of your. And I think that's why you went from place to place, church to church. I think if you think about it, that's what Jesus did. Jesus went around and tried to figure out, okay, why am I so different? Why is everything happening? Trying to learn different modalities, different ways of connecting, different ways of understanding. And that's what you did.
yeah, over those 20 years, I also trained to be Reiki master teacher. So I went through level 1, 2, and 3 and was teaching that. I went through courses on crystals, astrology, dowsing, anything to do with the esoteric. I mean, I spent hundreds of hours reading books and going to workshops and learning. And then I was bringing all of that in. There were certain books that I'd be drawn to. If I was struggling with a client, which didn't happen very often, but now and again, I would just get this, you need to know more. And I'd say, show me. And I'd be led to a book. So I found, for example, The Journey by Brendan Bayes back in late 90s, early noughties. And that was all about healing the physical body. She healed herself from cancer by tapping into the cause of it, which was emotional discourse and stresses and tensions through her life. So I read that, brought that in. Then there was another book. I mean, and there was just loads. And each time, if it resonated, I'd bring it in. So I was kind of teaching myself, then I was doing it with my clients. The biggest part really was for myself, my own healing. So when I was 37, so that's 21 years ago now, when I had moved, I left the rat race, I was retraining with the hypnotherapy. That's when my own healing and release happened from my own traumas that I'd had before. Because like many people, those traumas had been repeated. So, you know, there's sexual abuse in childhood, but then there was sexual abuse in my teens and in my early 20s again, from different people. I kept repeating the same pattern. So I wanted to understand that. And of course, now I understand that it's all about your vibrational resonance. I was vibrating on trauma and victim. And so I kept drawing to me situations that would mirror that back to me. So eventually the penny twigged, and I then was able to release all of that energy, release the trauma, rebalance myself and my health. So that's why I then moved into, I want to fix other people who are going through the same thing. So I specialized with that for the next 10 or 12 15 years. It was only last year, actually, I pulled away. About 18 months ago, I had new information coming through for me saying it's time for you to work on a different vibration now. It was quite a challenge in terms of trust, because it was 40% of my work and my income to say, okay, I'm closing that down. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'd written a book on it, and, you know, it's called Moving Past the Past, a guide for survivors of childhood sexual abuse. There was lots of information in there. And I just got this very clear message: you've done enough, let somebody else run with that now. Now we want you to move more towards teaching the higher vibrational stuff. So I'm still, you know, I'm doing my tarot on YouTube, I'm doing the readings, but I want to do more than just give you the information. I want to show you how to heal from this, or what the cause is, or have a look deeper. So I try to move it like that. So I'm not a channel that does tarot on love readings, because if you're not aligned with love, it ain't coming.
That's true.
It's not. So no point me spitting out reading after reading for different signs saying about love, because it's so generic. You know, instead I created a new program called Unlock Your Block. And, you know, unlock your block to love, to a new job, to money, abundance, finances. Unlock your blocks, because if you're not aligned, those blocks are in the way, which are in your own subconscious. Then it's impossible for you to draw those things to you until you're aligned with them. So, you know, that program I created about 15 months ago. Loads of those have gone out, and lots of people are now living a more healthy, abundant, loving life, which is wonderful. So that's kind of what I'm all about. So I love my work. I love the YouTube. I love the fact that I can reach more people and be able to show them I wouldn't say a better way, a different way. You know, it's kind of the rules of life, the game of life, you know, understanding the law of attraction. It's much more than The Secret.
Yes.
It's
much more complex as well.
It's much more complex.
They make it sound real simple there, but it's not as simple. You know, the thing is, you know, you've grown, and I think that's a great lesson for everybody who's listening, even if you're in the beginning phases of unlocking your potential. you know, we all grow. We all go through trying this and trying that, and oh, that resonates with me. Okay, that didn't resonate with me. Okay, moving along. Because a lot of people think, you know, either, you know, this person is the truth and this person is not, but it's not that simple. We can actually learn from everyone. So you have to see everyone and everything as a teaching. Everyone's either a teacher, you're going to learn something, whether it's positive or negative. Either way, it's going to be great for your expansion. And I think we need to allow ourselves to go, okay, I've learned everything I can now from this person. Now I'm getting drawn to this person. That's okay. You're not betraying the other person. Okay. You're just evolving. And the more you evolve, the more you really, it's almost like what you thought you used to know is now a whole different ball game. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Because you were talking about, you know, how you got to the understanding that, oh, you know, Jesus, God, everyone is talking through me, not at me. And that's a revelation that I got about 5 years ago, where my guide Eric basically told me, so okay, we're gonna go now because you really don't need us anymore. And I said, whoa, where are you guys going? They're like, well, we're still there, but now you're starting to understand that the information comes from within you. We're not next to you, talking to you in your head. We're in here. We're in here. And so when the information you're saying through the idea of us is actually has always resided within you, within your soul, and your soul is connected to the all-knowing. And so we're actually tapping into, but they also explained that as a human being, we are too insecure, like you said, and we need to have this idea that somebody else is providing us this information. And yes, they're there to guide us and help us and assist us on an energetic level, but really the information has always been present through the connection in our soul that is connected to everything that is. And so that it was wonderful to hear you say that as well, because there was a point where I was going, okay, this is scary, because I freaked out because I'm like, don't go away. I need you. Where are you going? But, you know, I started to have a different relationship with them and started to understand that they're always there. And all I need to do is just trust. And that's really what it is. And the other revelation, I don't know if you've tapped into that as well. For me, which was big, was basically they said, you know, your soul's not inside of you. You are inside your soul because it's massive. And so this body is basically in the soul. It's this tiny little thingy in this massive, you know, energy source. And that really kind of went, oh, that's kind of cool. But like you said, people will resonate with us at a certain level. It's like, you know, there's a teacher out there for everyone at every level. And I think the more you grow, the more you start to attract the right teachers. And it's okay, you know, it's okay to evolve in that as well.
And the other way around as well, you know, I think the saying that when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. And so if we think about, I tend to think about life as a little bit like the school system. You know, each year we change class, we go to a different teacher. And we go from, in the UK, we call it infant school for like 5-6-year-olds, and then junior school from 7 to 11, and then high school from 12 to 18, and then college, university. Each time that you progress up with more knowledge, you get a teacher that's got more knowledge. You wouldn't have a university professor teaching a 5-year-olds because they're teaching the university level now. You've gone up and up and up. And it's the same with us. So, you know, I started with the shamanic stuff. I was working with the Native American shamanic energy for about 20 years. So I had my guides, you know, and the feather dresses, and I was into the rattles and the drums and all of that. And then White Eagle came along in probably from about 30 to 40. I was working with White Eagle, so very high level stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're going now. And I was like, you, what? And then along came, and this freaked me out completely. My guides came in and said, you know, bye, we're off now. You don't need us anymore. We'll send you somebody new. And the next day, this nun appeared. A nun? What? what is going
I
on here?
have to trade the cool Indian for the nun.
But it was an introduction. It was so weird because it was an introduction, because within the next literally few hours, few days, all I kept seeing was angels. I've never worked with angels before. And this nun, because I'm, in terms of the church in the UK, I belong to the Protestants, and it's the Catholics who are into all the angels. The Protestants aren't really, okay?
Really? Yeah, I don't know. I was never raised with a religion. I don't know anything about any churches.
So within the church, the Christian church, you've got Protestants and Catholics. The original religion was Catholics, and Protestants come along from Henry VIII. But the angels are very much around the Catholics, and nuns are Catholic generally. So anyway, this nun came, kind of introduced me to these angels, and then she went, and I had all these angels. And it was so weird because my whole house was filled with, at the time, drums and rattles and very earthy stuff. And all of a sudden, I no longer resonated with any of it. I had pictures on the wall of wolves and very much earthy shamanic stuff. All of a sudden, I didn't want it. I did a big giveaway ceremony. I gave it all away, and I went off and bought all of these pictures of angels and lights and crystals, and it was completely different energy. And then over the next 5 years, that morphed into more Buddha energy. So I'm now kind of tapping into the Buddha. And that's where we really start taking the power within, because the Buddhists believe that everything is within you, more of the I am. Yeah. So
Well,
I'm
because
now
Buddhism's not really a religion. It really is more of a state of mind, it's a truth. And I totally immersed myself into, I think I was about 21, 22, into the Buddhist world. And that's really where I healed myself. So yeah, to me, Buddhism is very, very close to
it's one of
spiritual
the
truth.
4 key faiths. We won't use the word religion, but it's one of the
because it's
4
not really, because they don't believe in a God. They believe that you are God. And
exactly.
that you are a part of everything. And so they don't worship Buddha. They don't worship God. They just see Buddha as a teacher, just like Jesus.
As a reminder that you are God. And this is what I started teaching over the last sort of 5 years or so, more around the I am presence, which is more of the everything is within you. And as Neil Donald Walsh said in Conversations with God, you have nothing to learn. You only have to remember.
Yes.
All the knowledge is already within you. And so, yeah, that was kind of, it went from shamanic to angelic to more of the Buddhist, and then came the I am and the law of attraction. And each level is taking me up to the next level. It doesn't mean saying I'm higher or better than anybody. It means I'm working on a different vibration. But when I'm now trying to teach, don't give your power away to your guides or your angels or whoever you think you're working with. They are working for you, with you. This is you saying, so I used to, for example, go off, and if I'm going out and I need to go to a shop, I would say to my angels, get me a parking space. Thank you very much. Right outside the shop, particularly when it's raining. And now I say, I am creating a parking space, and my angels are assisting me. Yeah.
Dead relative who does that. Lambert, thank you. I love you. I do it all the time. It works.
And it's the same. I've brought it more into with physical healing as well. So if I feel unwell, I just tune into that vibration of that unwellness, which is only because your body's out of balance and there's some block there to that. And I just command, I am releasing all blocks that prevent full well-being. And I am now aligned with health and well-being. Yeah. And
I think that's a good point. You said I am, because in order to change our reality, we cannot beg, please, 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 please. It's about acknowledging what's already there. And it's about acknowledging the outcome that you already want to feel.
The I am is a very different thing. The I am is the I am presence. So whatever you say after the words I am, you are bringing into creation. And people just don't realize this. So we talked about it a little bit in law of attraction stuff and The Secret, but it's you need to understand it deeper, that the word I am is immediately commanding the God intelligence within you to come forth and take command. So when we're saying I am unwell or I am pissed off, you're immediately creating that. So you've got to watch your words. And as a hypnotherapist, those words are key to what is going in our conscious and subconscious. So when you say, you know, I am feeling rough, you're drawing more illness towards you, or more imbalance towards you. So the I am is huge. We must be mindful of what we're saying. You know, I'm going to kill her. You know, it's like, that's just showing that you're angry. So instead, own it. I am angry right now. I own that anger, all emotions. There's no negative or positive. One makes you feel bad, one makes you feel good, but they're all teachers and they're all there to support you. So if I am angry, it's because something or someone has crossed a boundary, disrespected me, messed me about, whatever it is. Let's own it, that behavior wasn't okay, that action wasn't okay, it's happened for a reason. So I'm now going to try and understand that reason, and I'm going to release. I am now releasing the anger from my being and coming into a place of peace and being able to look at the experience. I don't like the word lesson, but what was that trying to help me to release or grow? Because it's doing one or the other.
Well, it kind of, you know, the outside world is really a reflection of things that we either need to still experience or we need to understand about ourselves, because it's really about, you know, our journey here is not, like you said, it's not a lesson. We're not here to learn things. We are all knowing beings, but we're here to have the experience. So it becomes much clearer to us that all the things we already know about ourselves in our purest essence, you know, where that comes from and how that comes to pass. And yeah, I think, you know, it's amazing how people don't understand just how powerful we really are. And once that, I think once that understanding comes on a more collective scale, we're going to see a whole different world, I think.
I remember watching Janie King channeling Patar years, 20, 25 years ago. And this one particular thing that said Patar is a male energy being channeled through a female body, which was, I loved, a little bit like Abraham Hicks, you know, Esther Hicks and Abraham, yeah. More advanced than that, though, I would say. But yeah, Patar was saying, if you only understood how very powerful you are, you can transmute anything. You can create anything. And if your body is completely in alignment with your spirit, your soul, and your essence and your power, you can transmute anything within it. You could literally ingest poison and transmute it. And then he laughed and said, we don't suggest you do, because most of you are not fully aligned and are not fully enlightened.
Just to give another example, I don't know the name because I'm really bad with names, but I know there's a person who can meditate for 3 weeks in a row without eating. He basically is in a meditative state, a constant meditative state, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or sometimes even longer. And people are like, how's that possible? He needs to eat, he needs to drink. He has complete control over his entire system. And so he starts to realize that food and drink is really an energetic source, and that's how he feeds his body. So yeah, great.
We've got to be careful with the balance as well, because we need to remember there are a few in this world that are here to teach. And so they haven't come to learn, they come to guide and share and teach. But there's not actually that many. So those are the kind of people you're talking about that will sit in a meditative state for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, that spend their entire life channeling and teaching and being a force for good. Fabulous. But actually our biggest, what's the right word, please? The reason that we are here is to know that we are God and to know that we can create anything we choose. And so we're here to experience life, joy, pain, emotions, to experience all of these things. And so when people, and I've seen this with some people that I've experienced in my life, they give their life over to spirituality, to their essence, and they're not living life. They're avoiding life. And they found a safe place, and that makes them feel really good in that safe place. So they stay there, and they don't then participate in life. And they're actually denying their soul the experiences the soul wanted to have. So we have to be
Absolutely.
careful with getting the balance. That what we want to do, I think, in the world according to Julie Poole, what I think we need to do is to be understanding our essence and our spirit, to nurture our body, physically and mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and to nurture our spirit and our energy. Now, when we pull all of those together and see them all as equally valid, and we treat all of them with love, care, and respect, I feed my body by giving it fuel in the form of food. And I feed my spirit by giving it food in the form of connection to the divine and the universe and the essence and all that I am. And I feed my essence by connecting to nature and Mother Earth and the universe as well. Now, when I do all of that in a balanced way, I can live my best life because I'm using my spiritual teachings in my job, in my relationships, in my day-to-day life, enhancing my day-to-day life in multiple ways. And it's a balanced all-round experience, and that's what the majority of us are here to do. And many
Right.
people who come to me for a reading ask, what is my purpose? Where is the meaning for life? What should I be doing for a living? And 9 times out of 10 the answer is the same: whatever brings you joy,
Yeah.
whatever makes your heart
So
sing.
live your life with your highest excitement.
Yeah.
And when I first started, when I was 19, 20 years old, and I started looking into Buddhism and all of that, I remember telling my guides, I want to be like them. They're so peaceful. And they said, no, you don't want to be like them, because they don't have any experiences. They're just here to teach people techniques.
Yeah.
So you can then incorporate that into your human world, because they as well said very clearly, and I try to teach that in my online classes as well, you're, and I think if you look at you had the hippie time where everybody was doing drugs, trying to escape humanity, trying to escape this human life, always being in the spiritual, always trying to kind of walk next to their bodies. Yeah, and that was kind of the beginning of it, which wasn't really what all of it is supposed to do. You come down here to really have that human experience, to experience the duality, to experience physicality and all the joys that come with that. But it's about remembering who you are as a spirit. So you can then allow that knowledge and that energy to infuse your humanity and literally become a better human by balancing out the two yous, the human ego, which you need an ego or you can't, differentiate yourself with anything else. The human ego and basically the soul energy, the soul consciousness, those need to be balanced. And in doing so, actually becoming and creating a life that really fulfills you in every form and every energy and every need that you have as a soul.
The responsibility part of that as well, which I think a lot of people don't expect. And so when we open up spiritually, it can create massive chaos in our life. And
That is
I want to
true.
just get that in context. So you mentioned there about the 60s and all of that kind of power, flower power and free love and burn your bra and all the rest of it. It was the crazy, crazy time. But it was, this is my parents' generation. I was born in the 60s, but I was a toddler, So those that were 10, 15, 20 years older than me, that was their awakening. And when we look at the spiritual teachings, the age of Aquarius began in the 60s, all right? So Aquarius means freedom. So the freedom movement started in the 60s, brought on by, when we look at our parents and grandparents, depending on your age, and kind of go, you're so boring. These were the chicks that were going flower power and getting stoned and having free love and free sex and all the rest of it. That was not allowed in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. This was a huge shift forward of transformation. So this is when we had Martin Luther King Jr., we had all of this freedom and pushing forward. So here we are now, kind of coming 50 years later. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, but we are not far off, because actually the golden age, as we call it, is meant to be beginning, and meant to roughly around 2032, we're only 10 years off. So the big shift started in the 60s. Then there was a massive shift in 2000, another massive shift in 2011 and 2012. And now we're in this last 20-year period of breaking down the old in order to create the new. And so because of that, there's going to be, and there already is, massive collapse of ecosystems, weather systems, climate change, politics, financial systems. We saw the financial collapse in 2007, 2008. We've seen political collapse where, you know, everything's been breaking down to create this new. But it can look scary when you're in it. You know, tsunamis, there's earthquakes, there's floods, there's fires, there's all of this. But actually, when we can just trust and know that this is the earth and societal energy from the collective breaking down the old, and sometimes you need to make a mess to break it all down, clear it all out, and then we rebuild. And
but we need to see it, don't we? It's like the last few years, everything's been like thrown in our faces. Look, this isn't right, and women being raped, and racism here, and this isn't right. It needs to come to surface so we can get, we can't escape it anymore. We can't turn our heads anymore and don't want to look at it. We are forced to look at it so we can cleanse it.
On the macro level, that's what's going on. But on the micro level, in terms of your own life, it's a similar thing. So when you find your spiritual connection to your essence, to your power, it changes you too. It breaks down your relationships. It breaks down your boundaries. You start looking at your boundary. Why am I putting up with that? I shouldn't be putting up with that. And that needs to change, and that needs to go. And those people are giving me nothing. And I don't feel any resonance with them, and I don't want them in my life. I mean, as my spirituality developed, you know, my friendships kept changing constantly. My relationships kept changing constantly. You know, a relationship that, you know, a marriage that I had in the 80s was no longer right for me in the 90s. I'm a different person now. We haven't grown together. I've outgrown you. You know, maybe I've left you behind. That sounds really arrogant, but, you know, we've just moved in different directions. And so this happens. You know, I've got one friend left that I've had since like 1990. One. You know, and I've had lots of friends before, they've all gone. I've had lots of friends since. They come, they go. New friends come in, they go. Because as we're changing and growing and evolving, we outgrow people.
We're just on different frequencies, and it's almost like talking a foreign language to each other. There's just no comprehension of each other.
Nothing. There's no conversation, there's no connection, there's nothing in common anymore. And what I found as, you know, my sense of personal responsibility, my ownership, my positivity, the people I was connecting with didn't have any of that. So they would be in victim mode, blaming life, blaming the universe, blaming their husband, wife, parents, childhood, always about this kind of, and it would drive me nuts. It's like, I've got nothing to say to you. You know, you're in that, it's all my mother's fault because of what she did when I was 7. It's like, well, you're 47 now. When are you going to take responsibility for your own life and say, I'm not going to allow what happened to me in the past to define who I am now? It's helped me be who I am now. Absolutely. I have no regrets in my past, including all of the traumas. They've made me who I am. And without those traumas, I probably wouldn't have discovered my essence, my spirit, my spirituality. I certainly wouldn't have been able to help and heal the people that I have. So I see everything that's happened to me as a blessing. And so, you know, that's the way I want to move forward and say, so what's coming up for me in the next 10 years? So, you know, I was given a timeline many years ago of how long I'm here for. And, you know, the essence of what I'm supposed to do in that time has picked up speed more and more, which is why I was pushed to move on to YouTube in 2018. I mean, it's 4 years next month since I've been doing YouTube. And, you know, it's had 6.5 million views, which I wouldn't have been able to achieve on these smaller groups and circles and workshops. And so I want that to continue to grow. So at the moment, my whole energy is pushing towards growth. And it's been frustrating for me over the last 6 months that my channel stood still, and then actively in the last 6 months is going backwards. And I said to them, are we done then? Don't you want me to do this anymore? I mean, it's not shrinking hugely, but instead of it growing, it just stopped. And then it's just gently started shrinking. So I said, do you want me to do something else then? Do you want me to go and write another book? What do you want me to do? And there is another book that they want me to do, but I don't feel it's yet. So it was more about, no, just change the energy up, just get new energy in. So I spent the last few weeks just feeling into that, and I've changed the cards that I'm using. I've got a new computer due today to just upgrade and improve everything, to push it forward. Not because I want to be this big star that's going to sit on the telly on YouTube, but because my job is to reach as many people as I can. And so it's important to keep pushing that out, you know, and get it to grow.
And it's
so
funny because there's so many people like you and me, and there's a few other people that are amazing light workers that have a YouTube as well. And a lot of them are going through very similar change. It's almost like, okay, I feel like, and I think that's why I also reached out to you when I did my session. I feel like something needs to change, but I can't seem to put my finger on it. So it's not very clear yet. And I see that with a lot of other people who are like, okay, I'm stopping this. I'm taking a break. I'm going to take a break and I figure out what it is that they want me to do now. So it feels like this is a kind of a collective thing, that all of these people who've been channeling and doing tarot and doing all of their healing sessions, something's changing in that vibration as well. And so we'll just see how it unfolds. Even for me, I'm not 100% clear yet on what I'm doing, where I'm going. I'm just trying to have fun. And I think that's important for everyone, you know, in life. And that's what I learned most of Buddhism is mindfulness, becoming very mindful of your mindset, of what you're expressing, of what you're saying, of what you're feeling, and just really taking it one day at a time. We live kind of in a world where it almost feels like, you know, and I don't want to go into that because, you know, it's too much censoring going on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, people who really want to hear what Spirit has to say about it, you can go to my Patreon page. But with everything that's going on, I feel like a lot of people are they feel trapped, like they're scared to dream. They're scared to make plans for the future. And my feeling is, and I want to know what you think about that then really quickly, because it looks like we're running out of time. Oh my God, and this is going so fast. My feeling is, you know, if you just take it one day at a time and continue to allow yourself to expect beautiful things, expect beautiful experiences, and really let go of trying to limit what that experience needs to look like, but just get excited about having the emotional experience. Oh, I would love to have that connection again with people where I can hug and kiss and do all of that, where you know, where we can go and see the beautiful world around us, reconnect to nature. I think, to me, don't ever stop you know, manifesting those feelings, because it's when we are in a one day at a time kind of vibration, and we allow ourselves to dream beautiful experiences, we're raising our vibration. We're actually helping the collective much more than if we're getting angry at what's happening, or we're getting frustrated with people who are seeing things completely different. It's okay to have different perspectives. We're not all at the same frequency here, and we're all experiencing different realities, despite the fact that we're co-creating family life and friend life and all of that stuff. But what is your take on that? What would you tell people who are afraid to now look into the future?
Yeah, it's I agree with what you've said. It's the same thing. The biggest danger, the biggest risk is fear. All right, that's the only real risk. So when we look at things like the restrictions, and we look at the way that the rules, the laws are coming in more and more to take away freedoms, we can feel, and I have found myself getting very anxious and angry about that, because I'm big on freedom and I do not like being restricted.
That's a very empathic way to be.
what we have to do is just recognize that the best thing that we can put into that is love, and say that love and freedom, if I put in anger towards restrictions, I'm making those restrictions tighter. So what I need to do is recognize it, take a step back, neutralize that anger, and then come at it from love. That actually, if people are losing their freedoms, like what's going on in Australia at the moment, it's turning back into a penal colony, is ridiculous. And you can feel that there, that resistance. It's ridiculous. There's the resistance there, and it's saying, okay, so what's the higher perspective on this? And it's saying, well, the higher perspective is that people need sometimes to be pushed and pushed and pushed before they say no, no, and then we dissolve it. And so until that peak happens, it's like going up a mountain, pushing a boulder up a mountain to say, when is enough enough? When will you take responsibility that this is a collective, and then begin to shift it? And in terms of health concerns, lots of people are very frightened. They bought into the narrative completely, because there's been a massive psyops operation going on here to convince the masses of what they want you to believe, which I personally do not believe and never have. And that has been given to me right from the beginning, like it was for you. I've never publicized that on my channel because of the censorship. I've said as much as I can and left things like between the lines, read between the lines, but I'm careful what I say. But it's saying, look, do not fear a virus. Do not fear a virus. Fear. Because when your body is in fear, your immune system collapses. All of your energy opens up to absorb the virus, because that's what you're focused on. And what you focus on, you bring about, you attract it to you. So when you are constantly in the fear, I'm going to catch it, I'm going to catch it, then you're going to catch it. So when you
you create your reality by what you focus on.
So instead, what we want to be doing is focusing on my body is an incredible healing machine. If I cut myself and I bleed, my skin makes new skin. If my body is out of balance because my spleen is not working, my thyroid's not working properly, find the answers like I did. I had lots of different issues with low thyroid and things like this, and I just put out to the universe, show me. I found the answers and I implemented them, and I fixed it within 3 months without needing medication, just with a couple of tweaks. So when we say to ourselves, my body, I am strong, I am healthy, I am well. If you want to believe, I don't want to say want because that sounds wrong. If you have been led to believe that there is this big bad wolf out there called, and that's going to come and get you, then you are opening up all of your energy, which will totally align with fear and illness. So when you say, all right, it's either not there, it doesn't exist, or it exists, but it's not going to get me. Or if it does get me, it's going to get me really mild and it's not going to knock me off my feet because I'm really strong. These are all ways of thinking that your mind will absorb, and that is then programming your reality. So in terms of what do we need to be concerned about, let go of the fear and say, I am a divine being of light. My body is absolutely capable and able of transmuting all illness and all negative emotion and all toxicity and all trauma and everything that's happened in the past. I can just let it all go, absorb the lesson, and grow in light to move forward. That is what I'm here to do and be. And this will pass. This too shall pass.
And that's how it is. What a wonderful way to end this interview. Oh my God, this was amazing. You are amazing. And I love just how the wisdom, the universal wisdom just flows out of you. So thank you again for wanting to do this with me.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for having me. I will put this on my channel too, so that you can get some more exposure, because you've got some beautiful teachings there to share as well.
Oh,
so thank you.
All right. Well, if you guys want to check out Julie Poole, you can go to juliepooleonline.com. I'm going to put all the links below and at the end of the video. Go check her out. She is amazing. I love her. Thank you, Julie, again for coming on the show. And hopefully we need to do this again. This was too much fun.
Great. Absolutely. We can do it again. No problem. I will look forward to it. Perhaps we could take questions. If you've got questions from this interview, post them below. We can make a note of the questions and we can do another chat and answer some of your questions.
That
That would
sounds
be great.
amazing. That would be great. I love you. Mwah.
Love you. Okay,
Bye,
love. See you.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.